The following is a presentation of the Matt Talk Podcast Network.
And welcome, wrestling fans, to the Ice Hour. This podcast is aimed at promoting the world of Division III college wrestling and is named for the late Hall of Fame coach Dave Eisenhower. Here we'll talk about topics and news that's relevant to those who compete for the love of the sport in Division III. The Ice Hour is sponsored by My House Sports Gear. Check out their line of wrestling gear and apparel at myhousesportsgear.com. Subscribe using your favorite podcasting app by going to matttalkonline.com/ice. Another season of the Ice Hour coming at you as 2017-2018 is set to take hold today. We're going to be talking everybody's favorite Division III topic, and it's not transfers, it's realignment with Washington and Lee head wrestling coach Nathan Shearer. He is the chairman of the NCAA Division III Wrestling Committee. We'll talk a little bit about WNL wrestling, and of course, this fun summer we had with Division III realignment. First of all, Coach Shearer, welcome to the Ice Hour.
Yeah, thank you, Jason. Looking forward to talk about everything going on in Division III.
Well, you've been a D3 guy your entire post high school career, with a career at Ohio Northern, coaching at Heidelberg, and now your head coaching job here at WNL in Lexington, Virginia. For those who are unaware geographically, but what was one thing? Let's go back right to your high school career coming out. Why did you choose Division III?
Well, I would say most of it was I came from a small town, and Ohio Northern checked a couple boxes for me. Obviously, it was even smaller than my original hometown. But then also timing played an issue. Going into my freshman year of college, I had grown up going to the Jeff Jordan's camps down there in St. Paris. And at the time, Matt Derlin was transferring from St. Paris as an assistant high school coach, and he was coming on at Ohio Northern as an assistant coach. And I just had a really good relationship over the past few summers going to camp, and those two things kind of just made it an easy decision.
What point did you realize through your college career that you wanted to be a coach?
I would say pretty early on. I mean, I was really fortunate to be around some really amazing coaches and people. And I didn't want to leave out Ron Beecher, also was a coach there. He made it, even that much easier to go there. But Coach Beecher, Matt Derlin, Tim Derlin, Jeff Jordan, and so just a lot of just amazing coaches and people that made a really difficult sport really fun to learn and grow in. So I just thought I'd like to stay in it somehow. I didn't really know how at the time. I don't know if you really can ever tell, but here I am. So
we look at this situation with your coaching career. You had an opportunity to be a head coach at Heidelberg, a school in Ohio, where a state you know well. Why leave Heidelberg for an opportunity at Washington and Lee a couple years ago? Now this is your seventh season in Lexington.
Yeah, correct. And also I grew up about 12 miles from Heidelberg, and I have some family that lives in the same town. It was just a situation that just an opportunity presented itself, and my wife had actually looked at Washington and Lee when she was looking at schools. It wasn't really that much on my radar. I didn't really know that much about it. Had never really left Ohio. And the family was growing at the time, and she really impressed on me how beautiful the area of Virginia was, and the school, and how nice everything was down there. And so I took a peek at it and came down and just kind of fell in love with the whole Shenandoah Valley, the campus and the community. And it wasn't easy leaving, but I really have never regretted it or looked back and see myself here for a long time.
Yeah, definitely. I've made that drive down I-81, up and down I-81 various times throughout the course of my life. And fall in Southwest Virginia is kind of a hard thing to beat, even though you guys are kind of on that edge of what's considered Southwest Virginia. I'd say it's Southwest Virginia, in my opinion, but
yeah.
The weather there this time of year is awesome.
We're right in the wheelhouse. I mean, you wake up and you go to bed, and it's high 40s, low 50s, and then between 10 and 5, it's 75 and 80, and just it makes it easy. That's for sure.
And what's also interesting geographically is, WNL and VMI have occupied a lot of space in Lexington as far as a wrestling town goes for a number of years, but with the advent of Southern Virginia, creating a program and moving to Division III and being championship eligible now. They're right across the street, essentially, in Buena Vista. Then Ferrum right down the road. Averett starting programs. I mean, Hampton-Sydney. Virginia at the Division III level is growing. And, of course, right there where you guys are at, you got just a couple college teams within the same neighborhood, essentially.
Oh, when I first came to Virginia, Washington Lee was the only Division III program. In just a very short time, those schools you mentioned, SVU, Hampton-Sydney, Averett, Ferrum, Greensboro is not that far away, has just added. And there's always there's a few strong club programs and some rumblings that hopefully the ODAC can maybe add some more to that, or other schools outside that.
Yeah, of course, the ODAC, the Old Dominion Athletic Conference, primarily the private colleges within the state of Virginia from a Division III standpoint. I remember back, and it used to be the USA South dictated it now, which was the old Dixie Conference. We can't say Dixie anymore. So now those teams have all shifted around. So the landscape of Division III, at least in my home state, definitely has been changing, because back in the day when I grew up, I'll be honest with you, I didn't know a whole lot about WNL wrestling. And what are you trying to do within the state of Virginia to try to expose more people within the state that don't realize that WNL is and will be an option?
No, it's I tell you, for example, this year is only the second wrestler on our team from the state of Virginia we'll have on our roster. So the university itself, it draws nationally, so and the admissions is really competitive. And then there's a lot of people in Virginia that don't realize Washington Lee exists. So you have a couple factors and combinations that add up to, if look at our roster, and it's not always Virginia guys, even though we would love to have more. It's just, you're dealing with a small private school that incoming class is around 450 students, and it makes it difficult to have a lot of Virginia guys on our team. But it's not for a lack of effort. Sometimes awareness, and we're just get ourselves out there. There's a lot of events on the eastern part of the United States here. High school nationals, Super 32, a lot of things up in DC, and just working with VAWA and things like that.
Well, you mentioned VAWA there. Of course, both of your past and present assistant coaches have served on the staff. What's it meant to have guys? Adam Wilson is now he's left. He's gone up to Olivet, and then you've also picked up Alex Radsky on your staff. He's been a part of the Virginia Wrestling Association. What's it mean to have part of your staff as part of the USA Wrestling chapter in Virginia?
I think it's important just to be in tune with what at the local and state, and then at the national level of what's going on. I mean, so at the local level, we have a youth club running out of our wrestling room. In the state level, try to always be involved in the training camps or tournaments, or as many logistical things as we can get our hands on. And then at the national level, I guess it would just keep going from there. But I mean, really important. We're all in this together to see wrestling to grow and continue to add programs, whether it be any division, NCWA and NAIA. To me, it really doesn't matter.
As we come to the growth in Division III, Averett, Hampton-Sydney, Southern Virginia, Ferrum especially, they've kind of been carrying the banner as new programs that have seen success. What has Ferrum's success done, I guess, tangentially or basically by, rising tide, so to speak? What have they done for acknowledgement and respect for Division III wrestling within just the fan base in the state of Virginia that you've seen?
No, we went to their first home meet there. And a side note, we also left out Ryan Riggs. He coached with me at both Heidelberg and WNL, who's not only involved in the some of the VAWA things, but also women's wrestling for a little bit. But Ferrum's first home match was against us. The Roanoke news crew was there. The gym was packed, and Coach Yetzer and Riggs, I tell you what, they just do a phenomenal job of getting energy up in that campus and getting students out, and they've gotten their administration to buy in, and they're really just they've hit the ground running. I mean, they hired the right people, and it's fantastic to see other programs do that good, and when they're also ran by really great people.
You're bringing guys to nationals where in the past WNL wasn't really a player when it came to Division III wrestling, despite obviously with the academic rigors and the focus the school has on its academic and just fantastic type of atmosphere. But when you're getting one guy to the show and then all of a sudden you're getting two guys to the show, What's this show the administration, and has it kind of changed their viewpoint on the sport of wrestling on campus?
Yeah, I don't not necessarily know if it's changed their viewpoint. They're just really excited about the experience the student athletes here are having, by having myself and coaches and everyone just put a lot of energy and effort into what we're doing. And and they're the ones putting in all the work. It's us as coaches, we're just kind of guiding them along, but they do really like it. I mean, all our sports here do extremely well. And I just would like to be in that conversation of just another sport here doing extremely well. But I would say, I mean, our athletic director, Jan Hathorn, she's amazing. Last year, she drove about 7 hours just to see us wrestle at our conference tournament. One way there and back. It was up in New Jersey. And I just thought that was kind of, it made me feel good as a wrestling coach. I mean, she got in the car, drove up there and back, and loved sitting there all day watching wrestling. So it was kind of neat.
As we look at the program and where it's going, just one All-American in the school's history coming back in 1989, so close to getting that number doubled last year. What's it going to mean for you and the school to put another wrestler on that podium and have it be, these kids weren't alive when the last one happened?
Yeah, no, the middle '80s, Rich Redfoot was the last All-American, and as you mentioned earlier, there was Rich Redfoot, and then only one other qualifier since then. Oh, what's it mean? Hey, probably a great deal. You mentioned last year, our 133 pounder Zach Bilkbash, he went 2-2, and I really believe his freshman year he could have been All-American. I believed last year he could be All-American. It's just the margin for error at the national tournament is, I'd say razor thin or none, and just a couple of small mistakes. But yeah, it'd be tremendous. I think, for the school and everybody that is on the team, whether that was the guy or not, because as wrestling teams go, like everyone's in it together.
No, a big point of getting to the tournament and having that room for error, at least to talk about, is getting to the tournament. And last year, quite the contentiousness within Division III and the coaches with the regional alignment procedure. You are the chair of the Division III Wrestling Committee, replacing Dave Kemme, who rolled off of the committee this year. First of all, what is your role there? How does it work? What's the structure of the D3 Wrestling Committee?
Yeah, so I'm replacing Dave Kemme. I am the Division III NCAA Wrestling Chair, and we work with kind of all the logistics that surround the NCAA Championships event in March. So regional realignment, coordinating officials, the actual logistics of the tournament, and those things.
All right, so when this thing starts rolling, let's just get right to the regionalization and how the breakup was. There was some unbalanced regions, according to some, based on they're basically questioning how are these regions split up. Are conferences wanting to be together? They want to be split. There's basically teams dropping. There's being teams added in various regions. It was a real mess on where you had teams in the same city separated by a mile that were in different regions. I mean, it was a bit of a mess. So what were your initial reactions coming into this? Like, all right, here we go. We got to do this regionalization discussion.
Yeah, so my everyone on the committee has a 4-year appointment. When I was first appointed to the committee, we were still under a moratorium that we were not allowed to make any changes, and so we had some influx of teams that just based on where they fell, we just included those into the actual region. And as we talked about kind of at the beginning, we saw some rapid growth in some small areas of the country that kind of threw out the balance of things. Fast forward a couple years, and last April we met at the annual convention. We had endless dialogue, discussion, and it obviously started before that meeting, but that was where we were really going to get into the thick of things. Coming out of that meeting, we present a few things to the championships committee, which is a layer above us in the NCAA structure, and they lend some guidance back to our committee and a few points of emphasis what they felt was important in the NCAA structure to answer your question, the conference affiliation, there's a bylaw in there that requests that all conferences will stay together at the regional level. So it's kind of with that directive. Regionalizations and geography is also important to them. Access to the championships, so whether it's number of participants or number of wrestlers in a bracket or number of teams in a region, and then obviously a little bit of competitiveness. So we had that kind of blueprint and guideline to work with, and it's posted now and it was approved by the Champs Committee, and that's kind of how we got from there to where we are now.
How nerve-wracking was the whole process?
I wish I could say sometimes it was, it was, I don't know about nerve-wracking, but, not stressful, just, you're trying to do the right thing, and you have a lot of really intelligent people coming together on this, and everybody's working, and it, you're just trying to, at the end of the day, when it ends, or when it's all over, that people can really, something they can get behind and feel good about. I think that happened. I mean, we had 78% of coaches and administrators vote in favor of it. So I think that's kind of a testament to the output and I've gotten just a ton of positive feedback. Not to say that's perfect. I'm not sure we can reach perfection with some of the limitations we have, but I think the needle moved in a large part in a good direction.
With over 100 teams now in Division III, with according to my numbers, it looks like 23 new programs since 2011 alone, and that has created just an influx of teams, as you said, and they're again in different geographical areas. Not a lot of them are occurring, out west. I mean, Pacific is sitting out there by themselves, going, "Hey, yeah. Oregon guys, hey, how about us?" But Nebraska Wesleyan was added recently. That's their I guess their neighbor when it comes to Division III wrestling. But we get teams like the Ozarks adding in Arkansas, Huntington in Alabama, Hampton, Sydney in Virginia, the Southeast adding programs. When you get to that geographic discussion, how difficult is it to say, all right, we need to create a geographic region, and on the flip side is these are brand new teams, so you could be loading up a region with a lot of teams with not a whole lot of quote unquote power.
No, yeah, I mean, you kind of touch on a subject that maybe 95% of the debate can be revolved around. One of the things that made it a little bit simpler is if you look at that NCAA bylaw, and I off the top of my head I want to say it's 31 point something, but it refers to the conference affiliation. That captured about almost 80 schools. So it really helped us iron it out in a way that, and we were able to fill in and match things up and kind of come up with a solution. But it does get difficult. Ferrum just a few years ago was an added program. They won our region, and so the pendulum can swing very quickly with the right people in there and the right resources and the push behind the university. You can very quickly make some big strides, and so it gets difficult discussion because they may not be strong right now, but very quickly it can turn.
Yeah, Ferrum's going to be an example here. So say last year's team Ferrum had they performed very well and had what I think 4 guys sitting there that lost the match to qualify for nationals. Now, if you look at the current realignment, they're looking and say, okay, a lot of those guys probably would have gone. So you've created another power team potentially out of this regional alignment. Obviously, that's probably a good thing for teams to challenge Augsburg and Wartburg, but this structure is going to create an opportunity for, we've seen Wabash come out and create themselves as a power team out of their region. They're going to be super strong, out of the Central even more so now. But, do you think this has created a little bit more team parity when we get to the national tournament?
Yeah, Johnson Wales is another team. Look in the Northeast. Were they second last year? I believe they brought home a team trophy. Oh, you have Wabash, Ferrum. You're right. Yeah, looking at last year's team, they and knowing those guys, I don't see them getting worse. I mean, they're a fantastic group. I think it's tremendous for Division III, the growth of the sport to to have different schools in different regions, getting it going. And I think it helps when administrations can look and say, hey, here's something we can add, and we're looking to increase our enrollment. And then look if we do due diligence and put some resources behind it and hire the right person or people, we can be really competitive in a relatively short window, I think, compared to other sports.
Now, as far as these regional representation goes, that was a sticking point with the last proposal being approved. So now we've got a number of administrators and coaches that are representative of each region. How does the structure work from here moving forward?
Right. So each region from now, myself and Roger Krebs, who's also on the committee, he's Lycoming's head coach. We both happen to fall within the same region when we made it up. So I'll actually be representing the Mid-East region for this year, even though my team's in the Southeast. Now, when I rotate off the committee, someone from the Mid-East will be appointed for that. But each region, so you have the Central, the Southeast, the Lower Midwest, the Mid-East, the Northeast, and the Upper Midwest Upper Midwest, excuse me, will all have a region rep to be a voice for the coaches and schools in that territory.
And with the biggest shift, it seems, is the West, or which is now known as the Upper Midwest, is pretty much the rest of the Wisconsin Intercollegiate Athletic Conference has shifted over. In the past, it was split. I know that Dave Malachek said at one point last year he's got to go past like 4 or 5 conference schools to get to another regional, and now all his University of Wisconsin schools are all in the same region. At first glance, trying to take your coaching and your competitive nature outside of it, you look at it and you're like, okay, 17, 17, 18, 18, 17, 17. Geographically, I think only the Southeast is a little wonky. What were your overall impressions once you actually saw it out on paper?
We felt maybe it's not all that perfect, but when you keep those conferences together, you don't have a lot of wiggle room sometimes. And that's one of it was difficult even for me as a coach because that bylaw has never came up before in Division III wrestling. So the spring that bylaw came up, and once we worked with that, I think we did a pretty good job. I think those Wisconsin, Minnesota schools just making more of a natural region that they can all fit into. You mentioned the Southeast. There's a few schools. If you look at a map plot, map plot, and you color code it, there's a couple that will drive past. But again, we had to keep those conferences together. I know Delaware Valley College is going to drive past Elizabethtown as they switch regions. But Delaware Valley is in the same conference as Lycoming and Wilkes and Messiah, I believe. So we kind of had to keep them pulled over here. It was very important to keep the regions as numerically balanced. We as a committee and coaching body felt that was important to everyone. So I think there's some minor adjustments and room for improvement. I shouldn't say I think we all do. But I think at the same time, we just made a huge stride, and I think over the next few cycles here, we can get it really ironed out.
Now, as teams get added, what is the process for how long these regions are going to be in place? Is there a contingency to where, okay, this team's coming in, these teams are going to shift? I mean, it seems logical that if there's a team in New England added, that pushes the westernmost team in that region to the next region, because we have 4 more teams coming in this season, or 4 this season, and then 4 or 5 more next year. So this thing it's not going to stop,
and we hope it doesn't. These are great problems. So right now we're on a 4-year holding pattern and placing these schools as they fall on the map into that region. However, at the annual meeting, we as a committee, we can make recommendations to the championships committee. It doesn't mean they have to approve it, but certainly if there's a case to be made, I don't see a situation where maybe we don't explore that. The championships committee has asked for a 4-year stay. Doesn't mean we can't make a recommendation. Maybe it gets approved, maybe it doesn't. Yet we see on the horizon, this is not slowing down.
Yeah, next year it's also interesting because Ohio Wesleyan fires up. Wilmington starts their program over again. Defiance has just announced that they're searching for a coach. So that's 3 of the 5 that are coming in next year, as of right now, that are going to be in the state of Ohio. Now, I haven't looked to see what their conference affiliations are. Excuse me, with my bad language, talking to a guy from WNL. But the 3 right there, and that seems logical to say, okay, without looking at the conference alignment, okay, Central Region, who's going where now? Because it starts to get fun when you get the clusters coming in.
Right. Right now, to be honest, we're on securing officials and regional sites, and since we just got done with this new realignment, that we'll probably wait over the next couple of months. We'll discuss these things, but absolutely, it's going to be. I think everything's on the table, from making small shifts to potentially. I think we as a group would like to explore adding qualifiers to the national tournament, or as we as a group. There's a lot of different ways. Is that number of regionals? Is that adding additional wild cards? I mean, there's a lot of good exploration and communication going on with the group and the coaching body through the NWCA to navigate the influx of all these teams.
Yeah, and so right now we're 180. Is that, am I correct here?
Qualifiers. Yep.
Yeah, and then so logically, I don't know what the sliding scale is in terms of number of participation that the NCAA has. Well, what is that? What is the limitation on qualifiers in terms of what needs to be secured and adjusted? I know Division 2 is looking for more qualifiers, which may in turn help Division 3 get more.
Yeah, I think I just saw Division 2 did that approve. It might have approved, or at least they requested. That's kind of the mystery question that I actually, even as a chair, don't know the answer to. We don't know what the exact ratio or number is. What I am led to believe it, or we as a group are led to believe that it falls on a total participation scale too. So it's not necessarily. It doesn't seem like the numerical quantitative number of teams, but from what we understand as our group, it could fall under the actual participation numbers amongst the total body of schools. I think that we think that plays a factor in it. But I don't know, is that 120 teams? We're really not sure, because we're not sure what the roster sizes would be.
Well, also looking at Division 3 and Division 1, Division 2, they don't have the same rules, whereas in terms of rules, meaning the type of a number of teams and athletes, because Division 1, your minimums are 6 men's sports, 8 women's sports. And Division 3, you've got sports upon sports upon sport. I mean, you got some schools in Division 3 have 30 sports, so you're looking at significantly more cost to run those championships from an NCAA perspective. But my next question is what do you think the most logical step is if we keep the 6 regions? Okay, is it simply go, all right, let's get, instead of top 3 per region, let's go top 4, make it a nice even 24-man bracket?
No, I mean, we're exploring that for sure. Is it add 7 regions? And nothing's been formally, thrown to the championship committee. I'm just kind of.
Oh yeah, incrementally, 7 top 3 from 7. I think you're going to get to 8 eventually, just because the way wrestling's going to start growing in the South. These Division 3s that are popping up down there, or schools that are reclassifying from various divisions, are going to make things. I think there's going to be definitely a boom in gaps where there is Division 3 populations, but there's not Division 3 wrestling yet.
Right, and maybe it's a situation of adding. Maybe there's a hybrid of our concrete top 3 finishers qualify, to maybe sprinkling in some type of RPI number that can take, say the next best 125 pounder in the country of a 4th place kid that makes it way there. I'm not sure where the discussion is going. We don't have anything set yet, but like I said, that's kind of like our next thing. We just got through regional alignment, and that's kind of the next the topic of what do we do with all these programs they're adding. What is it? More regions, more qualifiers? Is it to take a couple wild cards from each region? No, it's going to be interesting over the next couple of years.
Moving the next couple of years, this year's championships are going to be in Cleveland, followed by the NCAA Division III championships coming to Roanoke, which is something I know. I think You're excited for. I know Yetzer's excited for. I'm excited for because hopefully I get the opportunity to check it out there. Then we go Cedar Rapids, Lacrosse, Cedar Rapids. One, Cleveland because you're an Ohio guy, I would assume. Roanoke, you're about an hour away, hour and a half away, depending on traffic and I-81, tractor trailers. Cedar Rapids, Lacrosse, we know as locations. When you look at the next 4 sites that were announced by the NCAA last spring, what was the first thing that jumped out at you besides saying, "Oh, all right, we're close to home for Ferrum for the 19"?
In Cleveland, we're at the Public Auditorium, I believe is that the official name. I just use it as the High School Nationals.
Public
location.
Hall or Public Auditorium,
Hall.
I think is either one of those are interchangeable.
And the U.S. Open's been held there, D2 Nationals, and we had a great site visit last week, and I think we come up with some things that I think is going to enhance or create a really unique championship event. Now we still have to hammer out some logistics, but we're throwing around some ideas that I'm pretty sure would have never been done in Division III before. For sure, the championships, and maybe not on even any campus in Division III. So I think we're trying to work something out there. And of course, the Roanoke one, Gary Holden, who used to be Plymouth State wrestling coach. He's the sports information director, associate AD at Ferrum. He was really big on getting behind and getting the championships to Roanoke, and they're going to do a tremendous job. It's going to be a fantastic experience. And in Lacrosse and Cedar Rapids, I mean, we've both been out there multiple times. I mean, just top shelf. I honestly think our Division III championships they're a spectacular event, and they're well attended. And lately, by having it in these venues, I think it's ramped up over probably the last 10 years. The championship experience for the athletes has been nothing short. So,
I advocate to fans all the time that the Division III championships are one of the most fun events that I've actually had the opportunity to cover. And I get to go to the Olympics and World Championships. So that's a lot of fun, folks. The D3s I'm super excited at a personal level, even though I grew up 4 hours from Roanoke on the other side of the state, to the opportunity to go to my home state and check out the national championships. I know that the Roanoke Civic Center, the Berglund Center, as they're branding it, they've done a lot of work to it. It's now I've heard it's just an amazing facility. I'm not a super fan of the other facility that might be in the region. We won't call out that particular arena, but it might rhyme with Elam Ivik Enner. So, but yeah, you've been in the Berglund Center. What do you think this is going to bring to Division III wrestling for the championship sites?
I think it's very similar to the Cedar Rapids situation. And it's funny you mentioned the other location.
I specifically not mentioned that. Nate. I specifically not mentioned it.
When I went there, I didn't realize. So I met with the man that ran the Roanoke Civic Center, and when I mentioned that there was somewhere nearby that had hosted other events, it became a matter of pride that they wanted it there, and I didn't realize that there was a little bit of division, or competition, friendly competition, and so but they upgraded I believe their seating since I've been there. So our regional was hosted there 3 years ago, and great platform for the regional. A little dated on the facility side, on the aesthetics, but they went ahead and they upgraded all the seating, put video boards in, monitor boards, and it's going to be, I'd say, really similar to Cedar Rapids and Lacrosse. It's going to really be a good venue.
And one thing we also need to pay attention to is the world of wrestling tends to center around the 76 schools in Division I, and there's been recently news talked about the Blue Ribbon Task Force aimed at Division I, talk about moving the season and things of that nature. And one of the lines in there was Division II and Division III would not necessarily be impacted because if their season didn't move, because I know if they move the season, it affects, it'll affect a program like Kings Point, which in the second semester, their guys go out to sea, so they might not even be able to have a team if if Division III shifts its entire season like Division I plans to, but or has having talks about. Where is your position on the seasonal alignment, the one semester sport, and how it impacts Division III?
Yeah, and this is just my personal opinion, nothing to do with.
This is not committee. This is not regional.
No.
This is Nate, the coach.
Yeah, I see Division III being reactionary, and I don't mean that in a bad way. It just, for as long as I've been going to the convention, thing like that, and it seems like moving to a one semester and creating some type of dual championship, single championship event in Division One it's been talked about for a long time, and maybe it does have more momentum now. It just seems like it's things get repackaged and presented in different ways multiple times. So I think first, I think probably as our body we'll wait to see if that actually comes to fruition, if that does happen, and then and we have our pulse on the situation. I think everyone does, but to see what happens there. But I think then also react and do what's best for Division III. As far as that goes, I can remember an unofficial straw poll, probably I don't know 8, 9, 10 years ago. Didn't go over well at the convention. Where I know the coaches were unanimous on maintaining the current season. And there's just a lot of factors. I mean, you have the administration, sports information, athletic training, crossover spring sports. A lot of logistics to hammer out on these small campuses where a lot of people have dual hats too, multiple roles, a lot different than Division One. So I think there's also different things that have to be looked at. But I think more of a cautious wait and see how close they get to actually doing it approach before we maybe get into that. But that's just my opinion.
Yeah, would it be a fair statement to say that way you build your program isn't necessarily designed on dual meet strength based on the small admission sizes to competitiveness? You're not going to carry a roster of 50 guys, so you're gearing towards more tournament based type of stuff. So a duals championship doesn't really impact your program.
No, absolutely. I mean, we want to win duals. We want to be, we'd like to get an invite to the national duals and compete in those. There are some things you mentioned that make it difficult to be, for example, a top 8 dual meet team versus have individuals place top 8. Here it's going to be easier having multiple individuals be a top 8 than our whole team being a top 8 team. That's just probably the reality of looking at our situation. And we're not the only ones. There's Division III programs that have pretty small roster caps. So there's a lot of that in regional alignment. That's very heated debate and contested subject once you get all the coaches in a room, because you're looking at it from your perspective on what it means to your team, and it's hard to look at the big picture when you report back to your school and you're on that campus 365 days a year.
Final question. I always like to ask this of all the coaches that are on the program. What's the best thing about being a Division III wrestling coach?
Yeah, I mean, Division III really lets me see the guys in all aspects of what they're passionate about. And by I mean that we have guys that go to London and study, go to Oxford, study abroad, and so they're great, tremendous students. Athletically, they're putting a lot of time and energy and focus into their sport. And then, when our season ends, there are internships and research opportunities. And so you kind of see that the holistic, that 360-degree approach to that individual. And I say this all the time. I'm thankful, really, a lot of our jobs are on wins and losses, about the value we're adding to the university and the experience that our student athletes are having on campus. And it doesn't mean we're not competitive and trying to win. It just means that I think you can be a little bit more relaxed and enjoy all those things. And of course the influx of work-life balance and spending time with personal family and 3 kids, and all the coaches I know in Division I, I know that's a major stress, and I'm to be honest, I'm not too envious of it.
Nathan Shearer, head wrestling coach at WNL, Washington and Lee, home of the Generals. We're not going to talk about the one of those generals and the politics that are going on in the world today right now, but it's always a pleasure to talk with you, Nate. I know my wife get this, folks, and I've got this Wrestling Shirt a Day thing on Twitter, hashtag Wrestling Shirt a Day. And a couple years ago, Nate sent me a really nice light blue WNL. It was a Rudis shirt. I'm like, oh, this is great. My wife ganked it from me like immediately. And so thankfully, he has supplied me with a replacement, a nice gray one. And let's just say what even though I wear a different wrestling shirt every day, there are certain shirts that are in my rotation when I feel like I'm going out or working in the yard or doing something. And I got to say that the hometown state man, Nate Shearer, comes through with a solid gray W&L Generals Wrestling t-shirt. So I appreciate that, and appreciate you coming on the show talking about the topics here in Division III wrestling.
Yeah, I tell you, everything, not only Division III, but the sport of wrestling as a whole that you do is tremendous. And I know everybody that I talk to is really appreciative of the time you put in.
Show is part of the Matt Talk Podcast Network. For more wrestling podcasts, head over to MattTalkOnline.com.